The following is a paid program, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent the opinions of the management of this station or Pamel Broadcasting, and the views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers of this program are solely their own. They do not represent or reflect the views, policies, or official position of ACA, its affiliates, or its staff. ACA does not endorse any statements made during this broadcast. This is 1 in 31, a presentation from Anderson Center for Autism. 1 in 31 is a weekly show devoted to autism spectrum disorder.
Good morning and welcome to 1 in 31, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, Chief Development Officer at Anderson Center for Autism. And today I am talking with Erica Stanzione. Stanzione or Stanzione?
Stanzione is fine.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's
Erica
okay.
Stanzione from BluePath Service Dogs. We are going to talk dogs, service dogs, puppy raising, all the really great stuff that you do at BluePath. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Eliza.
It's my pleasure. We've known each other for a while. I've met a few of your colleagues at BluePath Service Dogs, as well as obviously interacted with some of the dogs, which has been my favorite times, I would say. And Anderson Foundation for Autism, which actually hosts this podcast on behalf of, Anderson Foundation in conjunction with Anderson Center, for the last 2 years, I believe, has provided grant funding to BluePath Service Dogs to continue and expand your impact when it comes to specifically the part of your program that focuses on autism or autism supportive dogs. And we're going to talk about how all that works and checking out your website because you do quite a bit. So we're going to talk about that, but let me start by asking you to just tell us a bit about yourself. You can go as far back as you'd like, kind of how you got into what you're doing and what your role is with BluePath now.
Sure. So I have been working with BluePath for over 8 years now. I am the Director of Marketing and Development, and I started off in the nonprofit world right out of college. I kind of fell in love with the sector when I was volunteering for a foundation, and it kind of snowballed from there. I got my master's in nonprofit management and philanthropy, and then ended up meeting the awesome co-founders at BluePath, and started the rest of my career here.
That's great. I love that as a fellow, development marketing person. I know that it can be lonely actually, because you're sort of always trying to create this environment and community around your cause, around your work. But at the same time, when we get to meet each other and get to work with each other, then you realize how connected we really all can be. And especially when it comes to collaborative relationships, which we can also talk about when it comes to some of the separate ways or different ways that we connect between Anderson and BluePath too. Can you tell us about, sort of starting with your introduction to the founders of BluePath Service Dogs, tell us about who they are, how it started, and what your organization is all about. Give us examples or a history or whatever, however you want to take that.
Sure. So BluePath started in 2016. It was started by Dr. Jody Sandler, Caroline McCabe Sandler, and Michelle Breyer. Previously, the program ran at another service dog school, and they ended up terminating the program to kind of go back to their core values of servicing individuals with who are blind or visually impaired. So it left a huge void in the autism community and parents seeking safety for their kids every single day. So BluePath was born in 2016. And the mission of BluePath is to provide service dogs to kids with autism, offering safety, companionship, and opportunities for independence. As you know, 1 in 31 people are diagnosed with autism, and about half of those children have elopement or wandering issues, which is incredibly dangerous for that child and the family. When they leave the house, it can lead to pretty dangerous situations. And recently we learned a statistic that in the United States, 7 kids die every month as a result of elopement or wandering activities. And the only type of intervention is actually a service dog. So what happens is a child wears a belt or a tether around their waist, and they're tethered to the vest of the dog. And when they're out in public and that dog feels a little bit of tension in that tether, they're trained to anchor that child physically, and also emotionally, and keep them regulated and safe and with their parent or caregiver, so that they don't, run off into some sort of dangerous situation.
Yeah, I was reading that on your website, which I would encourage our listeners to visit. There's a lot of information there, which is simple. It's bluepathservicedogs.org. And obviously there's great pictures of the sweetness and adorableness of all the dogs. But it tells a lot about your mission and the team and the history, as well as there's all sorts of applications. And the FAQs I found really helpful. I know that you're a small team, and it's helpful for people if people take a look at those frequently asked questions and get the answers before they start getting in touch with you, because there are some clear things. There's age requirements, for example, which I learned today when I was reading about it, in terms of why you're focusing on a 5 to 11 year old age range. And it has a lot to do with the size of the dogs and the strength of the dogs and the potential strength of like an adult who's engaging in elopement activities. Perhaps the dog isn't going to be strong enough to keep that person safe. And that made sense to me. The elopement statistic that you just shared, I did not know that. That's new to me. I do, of course, know that elopement is a significant safety risk. And then you combine it with the fact that a lot of autistic individuals are still working on different ways to communicate, making eye contact, responding to, even maybe the voice of somebody they know or somebody they don't know, kind of drawing them to safety, calling them back to a safe space. They may not be doing that. So it's kind of this combined thing of escape or elopement for any number of reasons. Could be a loud noise, could be getting startled, could just be, I don't like this, I need to get out of here. And then not just the elopement itself, but the difficulty in getting that child or that individual to come back to you as a parent or a caregiver, wherever you're, school personnel, that kind of thing. So I learned a lot on those FAQs. I would definitely recommend people take a look. You also talked about compassion and companionship. So, and then I was reading a little bit again on your website about the specific training that the dogs go through when it comes to the autism program. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because to me, it sounded like a combination of the dogs, what you do in preparation for breeding the dogs and looking for, where you breed and where you get your dogs as puppies, then that training is the puppy training. But how, training a skill, I would think must be different than training compassion. Where does that come from? How do you do that? Talk to us about that.
So that's just the innate, that's just dogs. They just, you have pet dogs and they just provide so much love and comfort, that it's just something inside of them that just brings you that love, and a feeling of belonging. Some kids who have autism don't speak, and a BluePath dog doesn't need to speak back. They just love them for who they are, and are always with them and make them feel seen, make them feel heard, make them feel loved. So I think that's just a sense of a dog. And there's a lot of studies around the human and animal connection as well, and just how dogs positively impact the lives of so many people, and kids with autism are no different.
Absolutely. And I love how you're part of the application process, and part of the requirements. A lot of them actually have to do with the whole family, or at the very least, the parents, the adults in the family have to, go through their own training, a 5-day, I think, experience with the dogs before they come home. I am a dog lover. I have a dog. I would say the same thing. All of my dogs have kind of met me where I'm at in the moment, and they seem to have tremendous capacity for emotion and care and compassion, for really everyone in the family. What are you specifically looking for when it comes to that 5-day, the parent/caregiver comes to the hotel and spends, over in Wappingers or close to it where you're located, in the Hudson Valley, you're spending 5 days with the dog. Are you looking for specific things from both the dog and the human, or is it mostly looking at the human side of the interaction? that point?
So at that point, the match has already been made. So the application process to receive a dog is pretty extensive. We start off as a Zoom meeting with the entire family, kind of go through the whole process. And then we request videos of the family out and about with their child in the community, making sure that they are taking those opportunities to go out, because if they're not going out now, they're not going to go out with a dog. And our dog needs about 8 to 10 hours of work a week. That's a requirement for us. We want to make sure that you are trying to get out in the community. And then when you do go out, we want to see how your child's acting, the responses, how they kind of act in different situations. So we just get a feel of who they are. And then once we receive those videos back, we do home interviews. So we actually go to the home. We bring dogs with us. We want to make sure that the child, the parents, all interact appropriately with the dog. Some kids might not want to hold the handle, which is a huge thing. They have to be able to walk with the dog and hold the handle. So, if a family is unable to get their child to hold on to the handle, it might not be a good fit. But we're bringing dogs there to basically see how the dogs that we have ready to go and the child's needs are met by that specific dog. So, kids in general just have different sensory needs. So some kids might really like the weight of a dog on top of them. Some kids might not like that. Some dogs love to be on top of you, and some dogs don't like that. Some dogs are lickers. Some kids are appalled by that. And then you have to think about the speed of how the child walks, how fast the parent walks, and then also how fast the dog walks. You can't have a dog that walks really, really fast walking alongside a 6-year-old who has a much slower pace. So
maybe even some gait issues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that even with the gait issues, the vest is wobbling back and forth. We want to make sure that whatever dog is very comfortable with that sensation of the vest on its body as well. So there's so many different things that kind of go into the matching point. So by the time they get to us for that 5-day training, that dog has already spent time with that family. They actually spend 5 days in the home with the family just to make sure it's something that they can take on, bringing another thing to take care of into the home, which is a big deal.
Right.
And then the dog is matched, and then they come in for that parent training. So it's either one parent or both parents come in, and they have that one-on-one time with our professional instructors. And it's basically a time for the parent and the dog to bond without the children in the picture in the house. So it kind of takes them away from that environment and lets them learn how to use this dog as a tool to keep their child safe. So they work for 5 days with our training team. They go into grocery stores. They learn how to walk with the dog while pushing a carriage through Target. They go to Home Depot. They'll go to restaurants and learn how to put the dog appropriately under the table.
Cool.
Yeah, they learn all the different commands. We have our vet team comes in and talks to families about how to properly care for the dog, how to redirect or how to use the dog to redirect the different behaviors that the child might have. They also learn the guidelines associated with the Americans with Disabilities Act and how to responsibly travel with their service dogs in public. They study the health and the grooming of the dogs, just making sure that our dogs are in optimal care at all times.
I love it. So I really, it stands out to me how much you focus on real life experiences, going out to those places that most likely the dog is going to accompany the family on at some point. So I think that that's great training and important, and possibly something that gets overlooked. I certainly hadn't thought about that before. I was always thinking about the interaction between the person and the dog, I guess, when it came to walking around or being in the house. But those other locations obviously make perfect sense. We have to take a short break, but when we come back, I'm hoping that you can tell me some really wonderful success stories and the impact that you've seen, for individuals and families with this program. This is 1 in 31, the weekly podcast on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and we'll be right back.
Stand Up to Cancer asked leading cancer researchers to speak about why they do their work.
2 words come to mind for me. One is responsibility, the other's purpose.
It's just so inspiring to do research that impacts human lives.
Stand Up to Cancer has been a critical partner in advancing research for cancer.
Cancer research saves lives.
So please, help us fight in this battle against cancer.
Be a part of the team that ends cancer at standuptocancer.org.
I'm Angela Bassett. As a first responder on screen, I know what it means to act fast in an emergency. In real life, the same urgency can save lives, especially when it comes to food allergy. For 33 million Americans, one bite can cause a life-threatening reaction. Now, there's a needle-free option, a new way to carry epinephrine. Know the risk, know the options. Be ready to act. Learn more at foodallergy.org/ready to act.
And now, 1 in 31 continues on 100.7 WHUD. This is a weekly community affairs presentation from the Anderson Center for Autism.
Welcome back to 1 in 31, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and I'm talking today with Erica Stanzione, who's the Director of Marketing and Development with BluePath Service Dogs in Wappingers, New York. It's located near Anderson, actually, in the Hudson Valley. And your program is just wonderful, and I know that you have been a part of it, like you said, basically straight out of college. So you've obviously, grown in your role and your impact and your experience. So I'd love to ask you to just share with us some standout stories, some experiences that you've had firsthand in terms of the impact that, the Autism Service Dog program has had for individuals and or their whole family.
Yeah, so, there's so many different stories, and a lot of people take for granted the normal activities that you do on a daily basis that some families who have a child with elopement are unable to do. One of our families, when they got their dog, they were able to go to McDonald's for the first time. They were able to walk to the mailbox and put letters in the mailbox without having to worry that their child was going to run off or get hit by a car. So it's like everyday moments like that people really take for granted. Going to Target with all 4 kids. You have your dog, your 4 kids, and you're just trying to get groceries and not focused on what you're buying and just throwing things in the car because you're terrified and you have a death grip on your child's wrist because you're afraid they're going to run off. So just being able to go grocery shopping and actually be able to look at what you're purchasing and enjoy the experience together. And then it goes to, being able to take your first family trips, your first trips to Disney. We've had families go to Europe and not have to worry about their child getting lost in the airport, going on cruises, just, your everyday, your everyday moments. And then, there's the really big moments too. One of our families just emailed me this week saying that their daughter struggles when they have to get echocardiograms. It's always a huge sensory overload for them. But having her service dog with her made the experience so much more pleasant for everybody involved. It kept her more relaxed. And whenever she had to take breaks, they used the dog to kind of keep her calm and relaxed. So there's just...
That's wonderful. So everything from sort of family connectivity and engagement in your local community to the broader, world travel and things like that. And then also bringing up the medical thing, that's huge. I mean, I know at Anderson, we have wonderful nurses, an amazing nursing team that focus tremendously on desensitization and all sorts of ways to help students and adults that we serve prepare for and then kind of get through medical appointments. Dental is really hard, and dental is one of those things where, as we all know, and over the years have learned, dental care is instrumental to the rest of your health care and your ongoing health. And it is one of the first things that we hear from families that they sort of give up on, both for often because there are not that many trained dentists, especially in the area, who feel comfortable working with behaviorally complex individuals or autistic individuals, but then combined with just the number of times, you have to turn around and cancel an appointment because the anticipation gets to be just too overwhelming, sitting in a chair, not being able to communicate, and really, having somebody stick their hand in your mouth and also your tools in your mouth, which does not feel normal really under any circumstance. So I think the medical component is really just worth an additional highlight there. I have a question about about school programs. If one of the children who has a trained, dog from BluePath is going to a school program, whether it's, more sort of mainstream or a specialized school program, are the dogs able to go with that child to school?
Yeah, so some of the dogs actually do accompany their kids to school. If the child is eloping from school or would just kind of do better in school having that dog with them, we will go to that school with the family and train the teacher's assistants or whoever is going to be handling the dog on how to properly handle that dog in those situations. We had one case where one of our students always brought the dog to school. The dog was sick one day, couldn't go to school, she eloped. So they didn't really realize what an impact that dog was having on keeping her safe in school until the dog wasn't there. So it's a really, some kids really do need it, and it is really beneficial. So our team will work with the school, to make sure that the dog can go in. Yep.
What's the typical reaction to whether it's a doctor, an office? I know that the travel industry is becoming far more interested, not just accepting of, but really interested in finding ways to better serve and support neurodivergent individuals and autistic individuals. Obviously, safety is something pretty universal people can get behind. But overall, let's say you're going into a school to say, we're gonna be here to train the teachers, the TAs, maybe members of the administration. Is it generally very positive? Or, do you get questions?
So I haven't been in that role specifically. Our trainers kind of take that side of it on. I know in some cases that there have been pushback, but the dogs are, they do have public access, and that includes schools. So depending on the needs of the child, our team will work with the family to really get the school on board if that is what is needed. But other than that, I don't have 100% accurate information because I'm not.
I wouldn't like to guess. I was just curious. I would think, I'll guess, that hopefully it's overwhelmingly positive. Although, obviously all sorts of things come up like allergies and somebody else.
Yeah, that's always an issue.
So there's probably some navigating of the waters that has to be done. But I guess my last question, maybe give you just, we only have about 3 minutes. I would just love to know the impact of the Anderson Foundation for Autism grants that have had, what's been the impact? Have you been able to connect more dogs with more families? Have you been able to expand your program in other ways? We want to help. We love helping, but how are we helping?
Yeah, so the funds from the Anderson Foundation for Autism help us cover the expenses that are related to our program overall. We estimate that our dogs are valued at about $40,000, and that's from birth through placement. And we also provide lifetime follow-up services free of charge to all of our families. So out of that $40,000, none of that's passed on to our clients. So, helping to cover the food and the supplies and veterinary care of our dogs, we have amazing staff. So the salary for our trainers who spend countless hours, about 1,500 hours are put into each dog, training them to make sure that they are the best of the best when they're going out into the world. So, just helping cover those different expenses is huge for us.
I think the accessibility there's so many things that are challenging for families as they try to seek supports for their loved one, really starting from diagnosis and probably even before diagnosis all the way through adulthood. So we're certainly aligned when it comes to removing barriers whenever they can be removed. So if if the foundation's support helps another family get paired with a dog that otherwise would just not be an option for them. It's all about optimizing the quality of life for individuals with autism. That usually impacts families as well. And the idea of the safety, compassion, and companionship that you talked about, and primarily really that safety from elopement, which can be such a health dangerous behavior, is really in line with what we're trying to do. So on behalf of Anderson Foundation for Autism, we just want to congratulate you and the whole BluePath Service Dog team and all the dogs and all the families who are benefiting greatly from what you do. it's really a pleasure to be part of your community and to be partners with you. So thank you for everything and best of luck in the future.
Thank you so much. It's such a tremendous honor being partners with you guys. You have such a great, you're just well known throughout, the Hudson Valley, and it really reinforces the importance of our work in transforming the lives of kids with autism. So we're really grateful for your support, and we continue to strive to impact the communities that we serve.
Let's keep doing it together. Sounds good.
Thank
you so much for being on the show today, Erica. This is 1 in 31, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and remember, Anderson cares.
You've been listening to 1 in 31, a weekly presentation from Anderson Center for Autism. Join them for another edition of the show next weekend.